For the last 2 years, my life has been full of drugs, withdrawals, and gangs. The reason my life has been full of these things is because I'm a correctional officer for the Utah County Sheriff's Office. My hope today is to help you to learn more about the booking process into a county jail. Some of the steps that I'll go over today is the pre-booking area, as well as being put into the system or database, and lastly, whether or not an inmate is released or stays within the facility. So it all begins with the pre-booking area. In the pre-booking area, an arrestee is brought in by an arresting officer. At this point, they are in handcuffs like these, and an officer will begin a rub search or pat search. During that search, the officer is pulling out any belongings that the arrestee or inmate has on them. Those belongings are documented and are placed into a bag that is later sealed, and that bag will be placed on their property until a later time when they are released. They can take it out and unseal it. Also, while we're doing this search, if there's any money that is found, that's placed into an envelope, and that's placed into a safe, and that money will go to paying any fees that the inmate may owe the jail. If the inmate doesn't owe any fees, that inmate can use that money for ordering food or ordering phone cards to make calls to home. Also, during the search, another officer will be asking a series of questions. Some of those questions are if the inmate is suicidal, or if they've been involved in a car accident or in a fight, or if they have any enemies here at the jail that they need to be kept separate from. Those are things that we just document for the inmate's well-being. At this point, during pre-book, a strip search might have to be conducted. It all depends on their charges. If they're coming in on a felony charge or a drug-related charge, then a strip search will have to be conducted to make sure that the inmate isn't smuggling in any weapons or drugs. Once the strip search is over, the inmate will come back out, sit next to the arresting officer, and then that arresting officer will have some questions for the inmate, such as like an emergency contact or their address of where they're currently living. Those are things that we can just document as well. So it helps us to learn more about the inmate. So once the inmate is screened in, then we'll begin to put them into the system or database. So first we'll take their photos. Their photos are placed onto a housing card. That housing card is something that we'll take to every area that they are housed in, and it helps us to put a face with the name, as well it has their birth date and their booking number. That photo is also placed onto a wristband, and they wear that wristband throughout their stay in the jail, and it has their photo on it as well, so we can help identify them better, so then we know who we're dealing with. So once we take the photos, we'll begin taking fingerprints. We use a machine. We don't use ink, and the system we use is called LiveScan, and we take their fingerprints. It makes it a lot easier and faster to do it this way than using the old way with ink. And so it's sent to BCI, or the Utah Bureau of Criminal Identification, and we'll fingerprint on all new charges. Even if they came in on a warrant, we'll still do a fingerprint if they haven't done fingerprints on it beforehand. And something that my wife was talking about, she works for a school district, and she said at the school district they do fingerprints as well, and that's sent off to BCI, and BCI will notify the school if those fingerprints match with any criminal charges of someone in the past. So that helps the school district know if the employee or the new hire should be reprimanded for the charges that they have received. So after we do the fingerprints, the inmates have the opportunity to post bail. So we'll give them what we call a phone pin. Everyone has their own phone pin. This way we can monitor who's making calls because we record every call so we can listen to them. So they'll make a phone account with their phone pin, and then they're able to call family and friends, and they can call a bondsman to see if they can post bail, depending on what their bail is. If they are going to stay, then they'll be screened by a nurse. During this screening by the nurse, they're just checking their vital signs, making sure they're healthy enough to stay at the jail. Something that my sergeant said about the screening, she said the nurse screening allows us to know what an inmate's health is like, so we can know where the inmate can be housed. So we look at things such as mental illnesses or disabilities, and we base off those things to know where we should place the inmate while they're here in the facility. Once that initial nurse screening is done, then we'll get them showered in. What that means is that we'll take them to the showers. We'll get all of their clothing that they came in with. We'll place those in their property, and then they are issued jail clothing, which is like a shirt, your pants, underwear, socks, and some sandals. And then if they weren't strip searched out in the pre-book area, we'll strip search them at this point to make sure they're not smuggling anything in. One of the deputies at the jail, his last name is Fenton, he said while an inmate is getting dressed in, it is his or her last time while in the booking area to disclose any other vital information about them. So this gives them another opportunity to let us know if they have any enemies at the jail that they need to be kept separate from, or if they have any drugs on them that they're trying to smuggle in. It gives them the opportunity to turn them over at that point, rather than trying to get them into housing and then spread them around to other inmates. So, in conclusion, the booking process begins with the initial search in the pre-booking area, and then it ends with when an inmate is either released or stays within the facility. So some of the steps that we covered are the pre-booking area. That's just where the inmate's property is taken and documented, and they're asked a series of questions. And then the next step is they're put into the system. We take their photos, we take their fingerprints, and those fingerprints are sent off to BCI. And then lastly, it's the chance of the inmate to post bail and to get released. And if they can't do that, then they are seen by a nurse and showered in, and then they're sent to housing. So the booking process is one of the most important processes that take place while in the jail, because it helps us learn more about the inmate. The last thing I want to say is, as interesting as my job is and how much I enjoy it, I just hope I never have to process any of you guys.